Solving one-step linear equations. This is useful when we want to isolate and solve for a variable. When I say variable, I actually mean letter. It could be any letter. So what we need to do is we need to know how to undo an operation. An operation is adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. And dividing can be divide like that or divide like a fraction. So to undo something, we need to do the opposite math. So I call it the opposite math. And this needs to be done on both sides of the equal sign. The equal sign is like a balance. Think of it like a teeter-totter. Okay, there's the equal sign, and we need to keep it balanced. So whatever we put on one side, we have to put on here. Whatever we take away, we need to take away on the other side. If we multiply it and put multiples, then I need to do the exact same thing. So there he is. The equal sign is like a balance, like a teeter-totter. And it's our job to keep it balanced. We need to keep it balanced. Therefore, our operation chosen must be performed on both sides, and when we multiply and divide, we need to do it to all terms. Alright, so the opposite of addition is subtraction. The opposite of subtraction is addition. I know that sounds straightforward, but I'm glad if it is. So in adding or subtracting, the number chosen will produce a 0 on one of the sides. So in this case, if I look at m plus 1 equals 4, I'm going to choose to subtract by 1 because the opposite of addition is subtraction. But again, I must do it on both sides. So what happens is right here, this is where the 0 is, because a plus 1 and a minus 1 ends up equaling 0. So I just do that by crossing it off and putting a 0. The m doesn't change, it's still there, but on the other side I need to do the math. I'm doing 4 minus 1. You can rewrite it if you want, or you can go right to 4 minus 1 equals 3. So then I know that m equals 3. And if I want to do a left side, right side check, the left side of my equation is m plus 1. So I check by substituting in 3 plus 1 is 4. Well, the right side of my equation is 4. So that means right side equals left side, and check. It is correct. So I'm going to look at this. I want to isolate for n. And so I check and see what is going on with it. Well, there's a negative 3 or subtracting 3 from it. So I want to do the opposite of subtracting, which is adding. It's adding 3. But whatever I do on one side, I must do on the other. I chose this, so that will be 0. I chose it so that it would go away. That was the whole point. And 0 plus 3 is 3. So n is equal to 3. And if I want to do my left side check, I don't have to write it down in this case. It's pretty straightforward. 3 minus 3 is 0. Oh, it does equal 0, so I did it right. Now sometimes the letter won't be on the left-hand side like how we always want it. So it doesn't really matter, but if it does stress you out, you can get the S onto the left side. If you want to get it there, what you want to do is make this side 0, and whatever you do on one side, you do on the other side. So I want to subtract an S, but I also have to subtract an S on this side. So this is going to be 6 minus S, and this is going to be 0, and this is negative 5. Now, I want to get rid of the 6. That is a 6. If there's no sign in front of it, it's a positive. So whatever that is, I want to do the opposite. It's a positive. The opposite is negative. So I'm going to subtract. That's going to be 0. I'm left with negative S equals negative 5 minus 6, do that on your calculator if you have to, it's negative 11. Now, I'm not interested in what negative s is equal to. I'm interested in what s is equal to. So how do I get rid of a negative? Well, in this case, you want to multiply by a negative, or you could divide by a negative, either way. Because when you divide by a negative or multiply by a negative, you end up getting a positive, because negative divided by a negative is positive. And dividing or multiplying by 1 doesn't change the number. So that's s, and this one's going to end up being 11. So s should equal 11. Well, let's take a look and see if that works. Oh, if I had 11 here, 11 minus 5, well, that equals 6. So it is right. Now, I'm not doing a formal left side, right side check, but sometimes it doesn't ask you. It doesn't mean you can't check. I'm going to solve this one a little bit different, leaving the y where it is, and show you how I can just switch it at the end. So I want to isolate y. So I look and see what's happening to it. Well, there's a 1 that's adding to it. Opposite of adding is subtracting, so I'm going to subtract 1. But whatever I do on one side, I'm going to do on the other. Now, if you want to draw lines underneath, I haven't been doing that. Some people like that. I don't think it's necessary. I just leave a space. So negative 2 minus 1 is negative 3. Write down our equal sign. We're always trying to keep our equal sign down the middle. The neater your work is, it's easier to follow and see if you've made a mistake. So y, I've chosen this so it would be 0, and I'm left with negative 3 equals y. Well, negative 3 equals y is just the same as y is equal to negative 3. You can just flip the other side. It really doesn't matter. Negative 3 equals y, or y equals negative 3. Now we can check this out. Left side is negative 2. Well, the right side would be negative 3 plus 1. So if I lost $3, but I gained 1, then I'm only out $2. So it's negative 2. Let's go on to multiplication and division. So the opposite of multiplication is division. The opposite of division is multiplication. If you want to think of it, times. All right? Now, there's the thing that's different from adding, subtracting. When we multiply or divide, the number chosen will produce a 1, not a 0. I don't like using the word cancel, because cancel implies 0. We want to end up with a 1. I say divides out to be 1, and you'll hear me say that over and over and over again. So, if I want to solve for x, what's happening between the 9 and the x is multiplication. The opposite of multiplication is division. So I'm going to divide by 9. Notice how those numbers are the same. 9 divided by 9 is 1, because it can divide into it once. And x is equal to 9 because, well, 81 is equal to 9 times 9. Check that out on your calculator if you have to. That's a perfect square. So when I mean it should produce a 1, I'm talking about this one right here. That divides out. Although some teachers call that cancel, it's just not my preference. So when there's a line underneath, that means it's dividing. So this is r divided by 4. So what's the opposite of dividing? Is multiplication. Now sometimes what I do is I do it like this. I multiply by 4. And if you want to write it out again, you can. Okay, so that's end up being 20. 5 times 4. The reason you chose multiplying by 4 is that this would become 1, because 4 divided by 4 is 1. You can see you keep getting the same pattern. So r is equal to 20. So if you wanted to check that out, 20 divided by 4, check it out on your calculator, it is 5. You did it right. So again, we are going to do this. We have 5 times x. The opposite of multiplication is division. Whatever I do on one side, I must do on the other side to keep it equal, to keep it balanced. 5 divided by 5 is 1. If you want to rewrite this out, you can. This is where you'll need to do your math on your calculator or in your head. It's a negative divided by a positive, so it's going to end up being a negative value. 25 divided by 5 is 5. So x should equal negative 5. Again, I'm going to go up here and think about this. I know 5 times 5 is 25, but I want it to be equal to negative 25. And that's a good thing that my x is equal to negative 5. 5 times negative 5 does equal negative 25, so that is right. 2 more to go. Here we have y over 3 equals 4. So what we want to do is multiply by 3, and you need to do this on both sides because I need to keep it balanced. So this becomes 3y over 3. 4 times 3 is 12. The reason I chose the 3 is so that would become 1. Don't forget to write the y. The y is not going anywhere. Nothing's happening to it. So y is equal to 12. Again, like I said, we want this to produce a 1. So I look and see the coefficient is negative 3. Coefficient just means a number in front of a letter. Opposite of multiplication is division, but I'm going to do it on both sides. Negative 3, negative 3. I chose what is exactly in front of the m, because negative 3 divided by negative 3 is 1. But I'm left with the m. And negative divided by negative is positive. 36 divided by 3 is 12. So those are the most simple because they're one-step linear equations. I know with lines we end up doing two-step, but that's the basic, and you'll see me, I've done that with the changing from y-intercept to standard form of a line.